I guess.
Welcome, Iris.
Thank you so much, Larissa. Thank you so much, Dr. Graham. It's so nice to meet you all and to actually have this opportunity to share a recipe with you that I specifically created for this presentation. And you know, you heard a little bit in the introduction that I'm teaching how to make raw vegan desserts with people for an online class. And what is most important for me is really to teach people how to make their own recipes and how to be able to make recipes on the fly. So for me, creating this recipe was really it was really like inspiration, and it happened. And this is exactly what I would love for everyone to be able to do, to just, you know the ingredients so well, know the different techniques and tools that are out there that are helping us, manipulate raw ingredients as much as we can to have the results that we would really like to have. And you will see that this lesson is very much also a lesson about technique, and specifically a lesson about how to use all natural ingredients and primarily fruits, because of course a lot of raw vegan desserts are based on nuts and seeds and are also very high fat. And I really wanted to follow Dr. Graham's principles with this recipe and make a recipe that is really high 80% fruit and avoids nuts and seeds completely. And we do use young coconut meat, fresh young coconut meat in the recipe, but you will see that every ingredient that I chose in this recipe has a purpose. So it sounds like, raw vegan blueberry pie. It's an obvious choice to make as a raw dessert, maybe, because it's a standard baked dish also. But it's actually not a coincidence that I chose this recipe, because every ingredient in the filling, the blueberry, the banana, the young coconut meat, the raisins, it all serves the purpose of creating a filling that ultimately sets without the need for other agents like often you would see, like algae and other thickening agents, or coconut oil and other oils like cacao butter that are solid at room temperature to set the cake. And so this recipe is really independent of these fats. And I felt very excited to put it all together and to find actually these amazing properties that natural ingredients already have by themselves, and to know how to manipulate them. So I hope that with this recipe, you get a little bit of a glimpse of what is possible with all natural ingredients in dessert making. So I don't know how, I feel like I can't see you now, but I don't know. Let me just maybe check if I can go into the other mode. So I want to see you rather than me. So basically, I don't know if any of you already had some time to prepare the crust. I know yesterday you got a few instructions, very basic, simple instructions of how you can make the banana crust. But today I really want to show you the whole process again, because I know there can be some, like it sounds simple, but it's always better to see what is happening. And please let me know if you can see my table and everything. It seems maybe that
it is your camera moved a little bit, so we don't see your table.
All right, thanks. Whoop. There we go.
Yes, much better. You can
Okay, cool.
You can move the cutting board a little bit closer to you.
Alrighty.
Perfect.
Cool. So the banana crust is also something that I feel very excited about, because a lot of the endeavors that we have when making raw vegan desserts is, copying traditional familiar textures, and often we think of so many complicated ways of how to do it, and I was just so amazed and happy by the fact that we could really make a super nice, delicious crust just with bananas. And they are really amazing little things. And there is such a huge variety of bananas out there. Even here in India, when I go to the shop, I see always 5, 6 different types of bananas. And for this recipe, you will want like a medium size. This one is actually a little bit small that I've got here. You could have a little larger banana because when we are shaping our crust, we want to ideally use one whole piece as much as we can. And our banana should be sweet, of course. It should not be overly ripe because we need to be able to slice it, but it also should not be, green, of course. So, you can have some black spots, totally fine. That indicates the ripeness, but not too soft that it gets mushy, basically. For this recipe, we are going to dehydrate the banana. So I hope everyone has a dehydrator. Otherwise, if you don't, you could actually use an oven and put it to the lowest temperature and only turn on the fan. And you could put a wooden spoon or something to keep the door slightly open and then just have the dry heat and the lowest temperature, which is usually around 50 degrees Celsius, work the dehydration for you. It is less energy efficient, but if you don't have a dehydrator, that also does the job. So we are using a very tiny tart pan here that I have. I think it's 3-inch. And it's important to wrap your form. You could also use a ring mold. You could, of course, also use a larger size tart pan. It's important that you, anyway, what you're using, to wrap it in cling film. Because as you dehydrate your bananas, it will stick to the mold that you're using. So I actually removed the bottom of this tart pan because I, of course, want to still have the maximum heat and airflow come to the banana so that it dehydrates well. So ideally, that's why a ring mold also works really well because it from the start doesn't have the bottom. It's really just to hold everything in place, and we will keep the bananas that we're dehydrating in there for 12 hours in the mold. And after 12 hours, when is the time when we're going to put the date paste onto the bananas, we will remove it from the mold and continue to hydrate in this way. But this is just a little bit of a preview. Let's actually get started and do the things. So I'm going to start and slice our banana. I'm actually going to use one of the bigger ones. Let's peel it first, of course. And haha, see? So here's actually another kind of banana that came into my bunch of bought bananas. So I will go to the smaller one because this one's more a plantain than a proper banana. This is what happens in India. So here you see this is a proper banana. It's already on the soft side, but still firm when you touch it. Let me move this to the compost. And when you cut it, you could use a mandolin to slice your banana really thinly, or you place the banana onto the cutting board and then take your knife and just from the sides, maybe 4 millimeter thickness, something like that, you can slice from one side to the other and get these like nice slices of banana that you're then going to use for your tart crust. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on and you can join me if you're doing the recipe with me today to slice the banana from one side to the other, and then we're going to shape our crust. So always look at the side, make sure you get the right thickness. Of course, thickness is important for the stability of your crust, and it is also important for the dehydration time of your crust. When you have your tart crust fully dehydrated, you don't want it to be super crisp. You know, these banana chips that you can sometimes buy, it's not that texture that you're looking for. You're looking for almost semi-dried banana crust, so that it's still soft. You can still just bite into it and eat it without, breaking it. So that's why, yeah, the thickness is important. And when you are dehydrating anything really, you always want to keep an eye out on what you are dehydrating and on its process, because dehydration times can vary immensely, depending on the water content that is in your food, in your raw foods and in your recipe. And also, other factors like outside temperature. So you just really want to have a look out, like maybe every 12, like after 6 hours, after 12 hours, and see how your item is doing, and to make sure that everything is working properly. Okay, I think I already have enough for the size. I'm checking if everyone seems to be watching, so I seem to carry on. So I have my small tart pan, and I'm going to use this slice, and following the curve of the banana, I'm going to follow the curve of the mold. So you see, it's very easy. It's like made for it to follow a circle. And I'll do the same with another slice. And you always want the pieces to overlap slightly, because the reason is that as you dehydrate your banana, of course, the banana will lose water content, meaning it will shrink. So as it shrinks, it means that there will be little gaps forming between the little pieces of banana. So it's important that you have already thought about that and put the pieces overlapping each other. So then you kind of catch these holes already in advance, right? So they're already covered because you're using more. And this one, I will actually just use half of the piece to overlap this side. So you see, it's very simple. This is, I hope you can see it, please let me know. This is just the sides. And now important, of course, we also want the bottom of the banana tart. So you can see I put these bananas in at an angle. So just like slightly overlapping the angle, we work ourselves into the center, putting the slices until we cover the whole bottom. And I'm going to cut the pieces. So it is all fitting in. Okay. And you see already like this, I'm already covering the whole thing. I will maybe put a few tiny bits there where there are the edges to make sure that in case it's really, I thought about that. Okay, so let's cut just a few more.
Iris, that's amazing technique.
Yeah, it just totally contained it. I'm like so happy. I feel like that is the power of minds coming together. If I wouldn't have come to this show, I wouldn't have come up with the idea. Okay, not at this point anyway. But yeah, so this is all covered. Okay, and then this can go into your dehydrator as it is. If you prepare it in the evening, like it is here for me, you can keep it overnight, and then in the morning you do the date paste. Okay, and then I'll show you. But also, if you're like, let's say, yes, it's evening and we're preparing for the next day, then also today I would be preparing something else, which is the flax gel. So let's assume I'm putting this into the dehydrator. And I'll move my bananas or plantains away. Clean up everything. It's always super, super important when you're working with raw foods to really work hygienically. Food hygiene is always very, very important, but of course when we are working with raw foods, and especially also when we're working with dehydrators where we're using low temperatures, your food is so much more sensitive to any contamination of bacteria or particles, whatever. So really washing your hand always before you start working, making sure that your surfaces are disinfected and your cutting board is disinfected, that all your utensils are washed is very, very important. So move this away. Now for our flex gel. In the recipe, you will see that I put, I think, 20 grams of flax seeds with 80 grams of water. And this you leave for, let's say, 6 hours, something like this, sitting together. You just put the flax seeds into a bowl together with the water, and you allow the flax seeds to absorb the water. And I don't know if you ever worked with flax seeds. I assume you have, but similar to chia seeds, they gel up when they get in contact with liquid. And we are using this property as a thickening agent. So usually, very often, why are flax seeds in crackers, or why are flax seeds, you know, there's also what is called a flax gel, flax egg, which is used as a thickener and binder instead of a usual egg in recipes. So it holds everything, you know, if you're just working with flours, even maybe some water, it will not stick together. So the flax egg would usually be holding everything together. I am now refining the flax egg here a little bit further by making a flax gel, where I'm only using the water that is absorbed and made jelly-like, and I'm discarding the seeds, okay? Which just makes it a little more refined. I don't have all the fibrous parts of the seed in the recipe, because of course I want a super creamy and soft filling. I don't want any bits and pieces in there. If I would be working with a crust, that could be different. But for this filling, and for being able to pipe the filling, I want the super smooth consistency. So simply put the flax seeds into a bowl with the water, allow it to sit for about 6 hours, and then once that's done, you take a strainer, a fine mesh strainer, and you strain your seeds into a bowl. I've got a spoon. Okay. And I have my scales here because I want only to have 10 grams of flax gel, and this recipe should make 10 grams of flax gel. So if you're in a hotter climate, or if you happen to leave your flax seeds in the water out for too long, it may happen that it absorbs more water than you want, and you end up with like no gel whatsoever. There is a simple remedy for that. You simply add a little bit more water, allow it to stand another hour or so, and then you will have again the perfect consistency of gel that is required, and the amount of gel. Okay, so I'm just going to stir this here, and this one is a bit thick, but you can see already from putting the strainer on the bottom, it's like a tiny amount, you know, like you probably can't see it because it's see-through. I don't know if you see it here and here, it's like see-through gel, basically. And it will 10 grams is not even a teaspoon, so it's a very small amount. And you want to probably scratch out the bottom here. And I will actually add just a tiny bit of water because I do feel this ended up. Okay. You saw there was just a dash, and we're stirring it up. And yes, now you can see that the gel is dripping down. Can you see that? I hope you can see it with the camera. It's just like a nice little drip. Huh?
Yes.
You could see it? Okay, cool. So it's coming. Yeah. And you can always use your spoon to push down and get more of the gel. And you can see already by how thick the gel is, how great it will be for holding all your watery ingredients together, and it will continue to absorb all the water in your recipe and thicken it up. You could even use this, sometimes it is used for making like an egg white substitute. It is foamed up with a hand whisk and used for similar reasons. Okay. So I've got my 10 grams here. Okay, these I discard. You could use them in a different recipe if you want to, crackers, whatever. I'm not going to use them now. So in this recipe, so I'm just moving it away. I have here, I hope you can see it, I don't know. It's running around. Some gel. And this is what I'm going to use for the filling. So the process is this. On the evening before, you would be soaking your seeds, and then in the morning, you would be able to make your flax gel by straining the water from the seeds. Okay? So now at the same time, we're in the morning, so it is time to take out our already 12 hours dehydrated crusts. And I have an example where I made a crust, which is still in the ring mold. I used the ring mold this time, and this has been dehydrating for probably 8-9 hours, yeah? And so what I do now to remove it from the crust, I cut up the cling film. All the way. And then I just pull up my crust, and you see it's like a perfect little basket, you could say. And I have to open it, and what you see is that it will stick, of course, to the cling film. But it's better if it sticks to the cling film than it sticks to the metal mold. So you will be able to remove the cling film easily with your hands. There you go. And here we have a nice basket. Again, I hope you can see it all. And this can go onto the plastic again, because we're going to put it back into the dehydrator, right? And we will be able to make our date paste and brush it with date paste, and then put it back into the dehydrator for some more hours. Okay, so let's look at the date paste. For the date paste, I soaked dates, dehydrated dates, obviously, not fresh ones, also not semi-dehydrated dates. If you do have semi-dehydrated dates, amazing. I can always just recommend using semi-dehydrated as opposed to fully dehydrated dates that are reconstituted. They are amazing. I love, semi-dehydrated dates. They're so juicy and delicious. Here, I'm assuming you're working with the standard that you get in all supermarkets, fully dehydrated dates, and you reconstitute them with water for about an hour. And then it's a very, very simple technique. You've got your blender. I'm using actually a very inexpensive blender here, even though very often and usually I work with my Vitamix. I have actually moved. Well, I also physically moved because I'm in India and I didn't take my Vitamix with me. But I also saw that so many of my students, they don't want to make like this big investment in a big blender, and they cannot. And I actually was amazed with the results with inexpensive blenders that just need to have about 1,000 to 1,200 watt power. They still will be able to do the full job. And so this is one of those blenders, and I have had no problems whatsoever with any of the models that I used with different brands, that they could just blend everything up perfectly. So I'm using a small jug of the blender that I'm using here, and put in the dates. All measured out, by the way. I am very big, if you get to know me a little bit, I'm very big on amounts and in mise en place, and then having everything set out properly and using grams, most importantly, as the measurement, because I think that allows you just to be so much more exact, and it's something that we really want to do when it comes to dessert making. So I have dates and I have water measured out, 100 grams. And I think it was 80 grams of dates before I reconstituted them. And then I have just a dash of cinnamon, which just adds such a nice flavor. It goes really well with the dates. It goes well with the banana. It goes well with the blueberry. I think if we are thinking of blueberry pies, then it's often mixed with cinnamon and sweetness. So I think it's perfect date sweetness and cinnamon for that traditional feeling. And then, and what's good with when you're working with small jars, it obviously also allows you to work with smaller quantities. So this will be perfect. I'll just blend it up. I'm still here. Okie dokes. And I didn't mention it, but please, of course, pit your dates. It's easier to pit your dates, well, before you put them in the blender, but also after you reconstituted them. So then it will just be super, super easy to get the seed out, and you will, you don't ruin your nails also. Which sometimes can be painful when you open too many dates. Okay, so you could use the date paste as is if you want the fibers. Of course, they're great for your digestion. You have fibers in your diet. For a more refined version, I'm going to strain the date paste, remove all the extra little pieces of peel, and only have a very soft consistency paste that I'm then using to brush the pie. Alrighty. I'm just going to quickly get my strainer back and the quick rinse.
Iris, do you recommend any particular type of dates for the paste?
I mean, if I can, I love medjool dates, of course. Because we're going by weight, this is more like a flavor preference, and yeah, but because we're going by weight, it will not make a difference for your recipe. So because I'm not saying 2 dates, it won't change the whole recipe if you're using medjool dates or if you're using, what's the other name? Deglia or something, dates. Yeah, but it's for your preference. But medjool dates, of course, are delicious. Haven't had some in a while. Being here, already another bowl, our strainer, and then again we're just straining it through here, and a fresh spoon, and I'm just going to stir it and allow the date paste to come through. Much easier than the gel, the flex gel. And you can see the difference. I'm not sure you can on the camera, but once you try it, you will be able to see the difference. Like the result of just pure strained date paste as compared to all the little bits and pieces that are in the non-so strained date paste. Once you try it, you will see that. I don't think the camera is able to. Okay. So for the purpose of this demonstration, you could go a little further, strain a little bit more. I'm happy with this result here. Like I have a little bit, liquid in there still, but I will just discard this or use it for a different recipe. I have enough of the paste in this bowl. Okay. So super smooth. I'll show you a spoon. Super smooth paste. And the water content doesn't really matter so much actually when you're blending your dates for this date paste, because we are going to dehydrate it again. The only thing, if you add too much water, it will mean it will dehydrate for a little longer. Okay. So I'll take my half dehydrated crust, and I have one of these funny brushes that you can use for glazing things. I think in traditional baking they may use to put egg, I think, on the pie or on the strudel. And here we are going to use the date paste. It helps just to distribute the paste so much more evenly. And I'll just brush it in the inside. This actually also helps if you have any holes that you didn't fully cover. This will cover it for sure. And it adds, of course, more flavor, it adds more sweetness, and that's the delicious cinnamon. You can also put it on the outside, but you don't have to. Inside is probably enough. And you don't need much, you just take a little. And you can keep the remainder. You'll have quite a bit remaining of this date paste, unless you make more pies. But otherwise, if you have some left over, you can keep it in the fridge for 3 to 5 days, no problem whatsoever. You can use it for your breakfast, you can use it as a drizzle on some fruit, really tasty. And yeah, it will keep for 3 to 5 days in the fridge. Always when you keep something in the fridge, I recommend that you keep it for in an airtight container. Don't want any of the other flavors in the fridge to cross-contaminate, of course. So this can go back into the dehydrator. And we can use the date paste away, we can use the mold away. And wow, it's such a simple recipe. Now we're already there at the filling. So again, the filling is actually, both. I'm so happy with the crust, but I'm also so happy with the filling because it does use all the natural properties of the ingredients that are in the filling to make a wonderful consistency, to make it even pipeable. Like, you can get these piping bags and different nozzles and you can pipe it. And the reason for that is because all of these ingredients have thickening properties. So blueberries, I don't know, maybe you've made a blueberry or banana smoothie before, and blueberry and banana smoothie, and then you let it stand and suddenly you look at it and it's solid. So that's exactly the effect that we are using in this recipe. I think it is pectins that blueberries have that create that effect, similar to also apples. They also have pectin. That's why applesauce is often used as an egg replacement in vegan desserts also. So we're using the pectin in the blueberries to this thickening property to thicken up our cream as a filling. The same with banana. Actually, it's so funny here. I was speaking about the different types of bananas that we have here in India, and sometimes I make a peanut almond butter smoothie or so, and again, it's the same like with the blueberry smoothie. I go into the fridge, I look at it, and it's completely solid. I'm not sure I've noticed this effect with Western bananas so far, but again, there's so many different types of bananas, and sometimes it happens that they just gel up as well. So again, wonderful property. Also, bananas are so creamy. They are very neutral actually in flavor if they're not overly ripe. So that helps add more bulk and more creaminess to our filling. And also the young Thai coconut meat, which is our fat component. I don't actually even count the flax seeds as our fat component because we are only using the gel. We're not using the actual seeds. So young Thai coconut meat is our fat component in this recipe, and it also is thickening. It is also, again, we're using it, we're not, instead of nuts, we don't want to use cashews, we don't want to use any other nuts, so it is still giving a light texture, but it thickens up the rest of our ingredients together. And then we have the flex, which the flex gel, which combines with our blueberries and absorbs any extra water content that may be too much in the recipe, and combines everything together and makes it again more solid. And lastly, we have vanilla and raisins. I love to use fresh vanilla pods, of course. You just scrape them and put the lovely internals of the vanilla bean inside. You could also use vanilla powder. Actually, today I do have vanilla powder instead. And I have raisins. Again, they add more sweetness, and they also add more bulk, and in a way that without introducing more liquid to it. Okay, so let's get everything ready. Everything is already nicely prepared and measured out, makes everything so much more easy and quick. And the vanilla, I'm going to give our little jar a rinse. And the nice, also a little rinse. You can tap it dry with a clean kitchen towel. Always good to have around.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
I missed it. When you put the paste inside the banana crust, do you put it back into dehydrator to dehydrate again?
Yes. So it
And
will
how
go
long?
it depends. You will look at the texture of your bananas and how far you want to take it. But I would say definitely 5 to 6 hours minimum. And you could take it up to 12 hours more.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for asking. Okay. So now it's easy. Now we understand our ingredients. You see the actual preparation of raw foods often involves a blender. It doesn't sound so complicated. So the knowledge when it comes to making the raw desserts is really in knowing the ingredients. One of the main foundations, I would say. So we put in our berries, and I'm using here actually frozen berries because that's all that is available here. But of course, fresh blueberries will be even stronger when it comes to the effect of, like gelling, the gelling effect. Okay, then we put banana. Our coconut meat. I'm so lucky here in India to, I just need to go down the street to the stall and they will cut me up the bananas, and I can get like liters of coconut water and the meat also, and sometimes they bring it to the home. So that's a very, very lucky circumstance. I'm very aware that this is not the case in most of the world. Even though saying that in many Western countries, we can find young Thai coconut meat either frozen in specialty supermarkets or in exotic supermarkets. And we can also often find young Thai coconuts in Asian supermarkets and exotic supermarkets, and vegans, organic markets also often carry them today. And yeah, it is more available than it used to be, 100%. But if you cannot find neither frozen nor fresh young Thai coconuts, and of course I also want to, before I elaborate more on that, I just want to point out young Thai coconuts are not the brown coconuts. So young Thai coconuts are the green or whitely shaven coconuts that have have a lot of juice, and their meat is still gelatinous, like it's still thin, like this. Okay, so it's floppy, and it is not the brown hairy coconut, which is already a mature one, where the meat is super thick and solid. It will not have the same properties. Okay, so we've got in here the blueberries, the banana, and the young Thai coconut. I'm adding in the raisins, by the way, not reconstituted, just dry as they are. And then a dash of vanilla powder. And again, if you have a fresh vanilla pod, please use it, it's the best. Okay, back to our favorite activity, blending. Alrighty, and you see, especially because I'm using frozen blueberries, the color is just so wonderful, dark and vibrant purple. If you are using fresh blueberries, I would assume it becomes more light in color, more lilac-y. But you can see it's a very vibrant, dark color, which will be a wonderful contrast to our tarts. So what I recommend, if you're making the recipe on the fly and you don't want to pipe your filling into the tarts, once you've got your ready-made tarts, you can simply fill them up straight, level the filling and let it set a little bit in the fridge, and then you can eat it right away. I like to pipe them, so if you want to pipe the filling, you want to definitely let this filling sit in the fridge for some time, because the setting times can vary. I like to play it safe and have it set for like 5 to 6 hours again. And I've done that actually. So I have already prepared a filling earlier, and you can see I'm like feeling inclined to put the glass around, but I'm not sure if I should. But you can see it's pretty solid in there, okay? I hope it doesn't flop out in a second, but you can see it's pretty solid, and which is a wonderful sign for us to be able to use it for piping. And I also want to just make a little point. The reason why I'm not filling this into a piping bag and then put it into the fridge is because in that way nozzles tend to get clogged up. So what I do is whatever I like to pipe, it comes into a glass or a bowl, and I allow it to set for its allocated time in the refrigerator. And then once I'm ready to pipe, I'll transfer it into a piping bag. And I've got this fun nozzle here. I'm not sure actually. We'll see what the result. Yeah, the same like I used in the picture, I believe it is. So it will just, you can use it to create little simple pillars. That's what we're going to do, keeping it simple. So we'll cut up the bottom of the tip. Then a nice trick for easily filling your piping bag is put it over a glass. Trust the nozzle. Okay. Put it in here, wrap it on top. Make some space, and then with your spoon, you can transfer. Never fill it up too much because you want to have space to handle. Okay. And there we go. Okay, so we'll leave it in here for a little while as we prepare the fully dehydrated crusts. So I've got two that I made earlier here. They have the perfect texture. They're still soft, and you will feel that they're a little bit sticky. And one actually became a little bit flat, the way I made it. So it doesn't really matter if you're piping it. So it can just be a base. The other one has a nice edge. Of course, all the edges became a little bit shorter. So you can readjust by just lifting it all up to the top. But what I will say in my observation, I would say it's still juicy. It is not, by far not completely dehydrated. And this is what my preference is for it, because it allows you to, when you bite into the tart and you serve it, you can actually take a bite of it. If it's too dehydrated, then what happens maybe is that it will be a little bit of a challenge to bite a piece off. Okay, so present it nicely on the plate. Our two tarts. Just showing them to you again so you can see them. And then, so you can see everything. Okay. And then we'll take this and push out a little bit, making sure that the nozzle is at the end. And then, oops, we can make little dollops, pushing in, lifting up, pushing in, lifting up. Now it would be good to have an overhead camera, but you will see in a second. And I just go in circles. You can do whatever you want, really. Okay, here you go. I hope you can see the little peaks. And then for decoration, it's really simple. Huh?
Looking awesome. Looking just beautiful.
Thank you very much. And yours will too. And then for decoration, I've got, you could use fresh blueberries, of course. You could use a few, very thinly sliced banana pieces. You could use some nuts. Again, here it is difficult to get fresh blueberries, so all I'm going to add is some flowers. Everything is much more nice with edible flowers. And I have these white little petals. And I'm just going to, you could use tweezers. I have tweezers here, let's see. And we just allow them to stand on the sides. And I think it's nice when the petals actually are from the bottom up. Gives it like an airy look. Oops. And you can go here. Decorating is always a fun, like a meditative experience almost. There's always, I don't know if any one of you paints, but when I paint, there's always 10 pictures in one. So it's always like lots of adjustments that one can make, lots of things that one sees as one moves around.
Iris, this is so amazing. I feel like you paint in your desserts.
Thank you.
Yes, the way everything was done was starting with the absolutely amazing idea with banana crust. That's my first time. Dr. Graham, have you ever heard of that? Have you ever done something like that?
Banana crust?
Banana crust.
Oh, yes, sure.
Well, I guess I'm behind. So
I'm
anyway.
sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say like, oh, yes, sure, of course. Because, you know, it's something everybody, maybe not everybody, obviously not everybody knows. And yes, though I mean, I think I have a viewer still on the show. Shari might still be on the show. I made her a pie using banana crust for her
Wow.
birthday 30 years ago, and
Nice.
made her a lovely carob blueberry. Trying to remember, what was it? Carob blueberry and um, fig with a banana crust.
I guess
Nice. See, I'm saying it's like minds coming together. I just
For
somehow felt that it was somewhere.
sure.
Dr. Grant, that pie must have been amazing since you remember that 30 years after.
Oh yeah, I have photos still.
Well, anyway, Iris, unbelievable. That looks so amazing.
Alrighty, I'm just decorating this one because as you can see, it takes some time. But here you go. I hope you can see.
It's
looking beautiful. And
beautiful.
please, everyone, before you bite into those beautiful pies, please take pictures.
The problem is it's too beautiful to eat.
I know, that's exactly, that's too beautiful.
Oh, I can handle it.
Good girl.
Alrighty, that was it. I hope you enjoyed this recipe so much. I really did. And
Yes. I have a last question for you if you have time. Can I grow the edible flowers here in St. Agatha Mons? Because I love those flowers.
I would say for sure you can
In the
put
summertime, it's good to look into it.
in summertime, but also if you have, like a nice window or something, you could
Oh,
grow
I
them.
love those.
your
And
window.
they're not available to us anymore. Thank you so much, sweetie. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Love you.
It was definitely an awesome show. Thank you everyone for being here with us today. And
Well,
again, if
And
you
will
are
say,
part
I
of,
mean, in terms of that question, it's probably well worth mentioning that a fantastic number of flowers are edible. So you
Exactly.
probably can get edible flowers at this time of year, even if you're up in a northern climate, somewhere where it's cold. It's still a fantastic number of flower petals are edible. So, I mean, we don't have to be those exact ones.
Exactly.
all right, again, thank you for being with us today and making that amazing raw vegan, healthy, no guilt dessert. We would love to see your pictures. Please, before you eat it, or if you're planning to make it today or later next week, please send us pictures. We would love to see them.